It's me, Ari Dusted. Or as you already know me, Rashid. Thanks for being here. I have another live. It's going to be an audio live, so I won't be showing any visuals or any content on my whiteboard. If you're in traffic, please pay attention to traffic while listening to this live stream, especially when you're driving. Put it on hands-free, please. Thank you very much. Again, I'll start at 4 minutes. When you're here, let me know in the live chat, please. I'll be right back. I'll start at 4 minutes. Thanks for the thumbs up, whoever gave it. Thank you very much. When you're here, let me know in the live chat, please. Thank you very much. Three thumbs up. Thank you very much. I'll start at 4 minutes. Be right back. All right, class has begun. Begin. So, in this live stream, I'm informing you about what leads to genocides and what we as believers can do to hinder it from happening. Am I saying that we are able to prevent any type of mass crime out there? No. Now, genocide is not the only type of mass crime out there. What is a mass crime? A mass crime is a crime committed by a group of people. That's a mass crime. So you have a bunch of people committing a crime together. And because there's a bunch of people committing a crime together, it's harder for worldly authorities to deal with it, because if a few people commit a crime, you can send the police and arrest them. But if the masses commit a crime together, it's going to be more complicated. So now you might need to use the military or whatever. But in any case, I am not discussing the current crisis in the world in this live stream. So let that be clear. If the current situation that the world's in will lead to a similar mass crime, then we have the history to reflect on, and this live stream will help in case it becomes like that. So YouTube, leave my content alone, please. Thank you very much. So get your pen and paper, because I'm going to give some notes to you, and I will also reflect on a worldly theory developed by Gregory Stanton. Here's the thing: if someone is a worldling, but they are specialized in a field, we need to recognize that. This Gregory Stanton, he is specialized in researching genocide. He's done it for decades, and he gave a 10-phase pattern on how genocide unfolds. And I'm going through it very soon, but I'm not going to just focus on the theory of Gregory Stanton. I'm going beyond that and focus more on the roots. But it's good to know the phase of how genocide occurs. It's not just genocide, every mass crime. It can be mass rape, can be mass theft through colonization, mass enslavement. So any mass crime, it's not just genocide. So, do you have a pen and paper ready or something to make notes? Let me know. In the live chat, please, let me know. All right. Before I begin with Gregory Stanton's theory, one other anthropological insight I want to give to you. Genocide, as well as any mass crime that occurred in history, is preceded by mass avoidance. So write this down. Mass crimes are preceded by mass avoidance. Write it down first. Mass crimes are preceded by mass avoidance. So what does that mean? This is not something from Gregory Stanton. This is an anthropological insight me as an anthropologist is giving you about the situation. Anytime there is neglect in a community, the neglect will lead to embarrassment and humiliation of the same community. When embarrassment and humiliation pops up, the public wants to avoid it. That is the denial that develops in the community. That's the mass avoidance. People want to avoid facing the consequences of the denial. Now, people may admit the mass of the people may admit the neglect, but they don't want to face the neglect. So this neglect that goes on in the community, it will lead to bad situations. Once the bad situation in people's face, the neglect of the group becomes visible. Nobody wants to deal with it, so they all want to distract themselves from what's going on. Is this clear to you? Let me know if this is clear, because you need to understand this before I continue. All right, let me wait to get some answers. So now I'm going to focus on Gregory Stanton's model of 10 phases. All right. So now he had an 8-stage model, and later reformed it to a 10-stage model. So we're going to the 10-stage model now. In the first stage of genocide, according to Gregory Stanton, there is a classification phase. What is the classification phase? The classification phase is the phase in which a division is made in a community between us and them, or them and us. Stage one is classification. So this division comes up. Now, Mr. Stanton also gave what he considered possible solutions for what we can do about it in each stage. However, his proposed solutions are political. And as already explained before, political solutions don't exist. So that is why I won't go into the preventive measures he proposed right now. You could do it by yourself later on, but I won't go into them in this live stream. So stage one is classification. Let me give an example of classification. For example, you had Rwanda, where you had the Hutsis and Tutsis, and both tribes began to ostracize one another, saying, "Oh, you're a Tutsi, you're not one of us," or you're not of this tribe, so you don't belong here. Or it can be that in a community, the unemployed people are seen as a source of all troubles. So there's a division that's made in a community. Now, the division is not based on any objective fact. The classification is completely emotional. All right? So the classification can also be, oh, we all got a new passport, a blue passport. But you still have a red passport. So who do you think you are, having a red passport? We all have blue passports now. You think you're better than us, or you want to let go? You want to? So it's the classification is an argument based on nothing. It serves to give relief to the masses. That's it. Let's go to stage two. In stage two, the stage two is called symbolization. It simply means that when people are comfortable with the division, they will now invest in the division through symbols. So they may begin to call people tenfold conspiracy theorists if they have critique on a certain policy, or they may call someone a heretic, or they may call someone a loser, or they may even use memes to symbolize disgust. So in the civilization phase, the primary division of us between us and them is emphasized upon on a symbolic level. And because it's emphasized on a symbolic level, it becomes real to the public. Again, to the example I gave, let's say everyone had a red passport, but since the new reform of the government, everyone can now have a blue passport. So you still have the red passport. So people may think those with a red passport, they're keeping us back. Because of them, our nation is in stagnation. It's just a color of the passport. It's still the same passport. But they say, if you still have a red passport, you're the one keeping us back. And then people begin to make up terms to describe people that hold the red passports, just to express the anger of the public towards them. Now, when this goes on, you enter a new stage, the discrimination stage. The discrimination stage is the stage in which you have what Mr. Stanton explains as law or cultural power that will exclude groups of people from participating in society or in a community. So now there may be legislation put in place. If you still have a red passport, you can't participate in society. You can't travel abroad, and you can't how to say, form new contracts. You're not allowed to marry, or there's going to be some type of exclusion happens now. And this exclusion may not be on a legal level through legislation, but it can be also cultural. That everyone agrees, no, if you still have a red passport, you're a loser and you're not worthy of life. That can also be the case. I'm using the example of passport as a parable. Okay, so just so you know. Once discrimination has succeeded, now comes dehumanization. That's the next stage, stage 4. In stage 4, everyone who is not in harmony with the new normal or new expectation of the crowd is now considered less than human. They're now compared to, they're now classified as diseases, or compared to insects, often they're called parasites. So now they're dehumanized. They're not considered fully human, or they're considered subhuman because they make life hard on the majority. Well, for example, if you have a red passport, well, everyone wants a blue passport. They would say, well, if you still have a red passport, that's proof that you lack basic intelligence. It's proof that you have a brain disorder. It's proof that genetically you're inferior. So people come up with excuses to dehumanize you, so that they. And here's the thing: dehumanization will be in your face. Now, discrimination can be hidden. All stages till dehumanization can be hidden. Classification, simplification, and discrimination can all be hidden. Or people can come up with excuse for it, but dehumanization will be in your face. You're not considered fully human. Okay? Now, then you have stage 5. In stage 5, because the target group is dehumanized, people now feel more comfortable harming them and hurting them. Now, because there's already been 2 phases in which symbolic assassinations have been used against the group, now people will move towards the actual physical assassination. So in stage 5, people pick up their weapons, or they purchase weapons just in case. But they will always come with an excuse: we do it for public safety or whatever. Stage 6, polarization. In stage 6, there will be an open propaganda throughout the nation that we need to get rid of certain people, because certain people only hold us back. Now, the polarization works out quickly into stage 7, preparation. Now, behind the scenes, whether it's the government itself, or whether it's interest groups in the corporate world, or just religious groups, they're now preparing to use the weapons they've assembled just to act out the anger, act out the crime. Then you have stage 8, in which the majority who follows the new normal, or the new norm, or the new cultural code, they now are looking for a fight with the people that are dehumanized. So if you have a red passport, they will say, well, because of you guys, our economy is going down. So what are you guys going to do about it? So they're looking for a fight. And once the target group begins to defend themselves, they will perceive this as an attack. And then you have stage 9, extermination. Now you have a full explosion of anger. And this is a blood orgy that will happen. And then you have stage 10. In stage 10, after the blood orgy, people now have to deal with the high amount of corpses, but they don't want to deal with the consequences. They just want to move on as if nothing ever happened. So now there'll be denial. Nobody wants to admit what just happened, especially because a big portion of the population was involved in it. Now, okay, those were the 10 stages, and I paraphrase them and explain them to you. Yes, wonderfully made. There was a time they called black super predators. There was also one of the stages of genocide, but it wasn't recognized as such. Now, what I just shared with you was a model designed by Worldling that specialized in this topic of genocide. Again, you can look up his books yourself. His name is Gregory Stanton. Just beware, he's a worldling, so he's not Christ-centered, but you can do further research on your own. Now, I have some critique on this table that Gregory Stanton developed, and that is that there is one important thing that he does not mention. And because it doesn't mention that one important thing, you now have 10 stages. But I want to ask you, what is the one thing Gregory Stanton did not mention? Because if you mention that, you can reduce to 2 stages. What is the one thing Gregory Stanton failed to mention? I'll give you 1 minute to answer, to think and to answer. What do you think that is? Let me know. What is the thing that Gregory Stanton did not mention in the 10 stages that I just described? I'll give you 1 more minute to answer. Then I'll continue. All right. So Elephant Room Studio said accountability and turn away from God. Well, that's part of it, absolutely. But okay, what Mr. Stanton actually did was revealing how step by step our community can fall into a delusion in which they believe that the only way out of the crisis they have is by killing a portion of their own people. Now, it's like this. There are only 2 stages. Now, the 10 stages of Gregory Stanton, you can use them to analyze because he's a scholar. However, as an observer in daily life, there are only 2 stages really matter. And those are not the stages he mentions. It's 2 stages I'm telling you now. You have the escape stage and the escalation stage. Those are the only 2 stages you need to have, for you to be aware of. Those 10 stages of Gregory Stanton are good for scholarly research and historical research. But in daily life, there are 2 stages you need to remember. I already said it before. Genocide and any mass crime is preceded by mass distraction. People don't want to face some scandal in the community. So what happens is people want to escape. That's the first half of the conflict. They want to escape, and because they want to escape, they're looking for someone to blame, someone to be upset with. And in the second stage, you have the escalation stage in which people, after being comfortable blaming certain people, now begin to act out against them. Those are the only two stages that matters. So the question becomes, what can we as believers do about this? Now, first of all, we can only do something about the emerging conflicts. Conflicts that already played out, we can't do anything about it because it's historical. We can only learn from them, like we're doing now. So, one thing I want you to remember, worldlings always want to escape. That's the primary thing on their mind, to escape. They want to be left alone in their little bubble without having to face any challenges or difficulties in life. That's worldlings. So, anytime you notice in a community that people are, how to say, anytime you notice people are upset about the same topic, you need to become alert. When the masses are upset about the same topic, pay attention. Now, some say, but Rashid, if a volcano eruption happened and people are upset about the damage to the economy, that's something a lot of people are upset about, right? No, you don't get what I'm saying here. Or someone say, Rashid, what for example, when Joe Biden pulled out of Afghanistan in a chaotic way and left abandoned Americans? Is that something a lot of people should be upset about? No, that's not what I'm talking about. Again, remember, when genocide or a mass crime unfolds, it's preceded by a scandal. There's some neglect of the community that people don't want to face. And that's what I mean. And because there's something that people don't want to face, they will complain about it. They'll be upset about it. And as a result, you're not allowed to discuss that topic because people don't want to deal with it. So when you notice that in the community, beware. It can also be that there's a lot of sexual molestation of children that happens in that community. And now you have a lot of defective adults that are exploding in public. Now, if you do see the many adults exploding in public and the police comes to arrest them, but you notice that the people don't really pay much attention to the adults exploding in public. They just call the cops take them away. And now you ask yourself, hold on a minute. Every week you hear that several people exploded in public. They were destroying property, or they were running around naked, or they were looking for fights in public. So that happens every week. Every week the police is occupied with arresting people that are losing their minds. And you begin to think, man, don't people realize this is something that happens way too often? But then you realize that people just brush it off. And you think to yourself, how can these people brush it off like that? How can people be tolerant towards this? But then you also find out there's a lot of sexual abuse that goes on that's underreported. And then you make the connection. So you have a lot of sexual abuse of children that goes on. That's not recognized by the community. And now it has been going on for decades. And now you have a lot of adults exploding. So now you see there's a connection between the two. So, and now you understand why people don't pay too much attention to the fruit. Now, the root of the problem is the neglect of the community in dealing with the sexual molestation of children. Now, sexual molestation of children, unfortunately, it happens. We have creeps amongst us, unfortunately. However, the community must deal with it in a proper way. If the community does not deal properly with sexual abuse of children, those abused children will become defective adults, and that will bring a lot of trouble to the community. Now, When the public thus neglects in dealing with it properly, that becomes the root for future problems like crime or a wife beating or gang rapes or whatever. It's simple. When an issue pops up in a community, people should deal with the issue. They should find out what's going on, how did it happen, what can we do about it, what shouldn't we do about it, what's our responsibility in it, what's our obligation to make things better. The community must face what's going on. That's the obligation of the community towards themselves and towards the future generations that will come. It's also an obligation towards the Heavenly Father. But when a community persists in sin, or scientifically speaking, when a community chases relief instead of dealing with the issues that pop up, those issues will they'll grow and grow, and soon they'll be so bad that it's in your face. But when it's in your face, what the public does is they call for more cops on the street, for more police on the streets, or they begin to act out against the symptoms that happen, but they want to talk about the root. So let's say now there's a neglect of children in a community. There's so much sexual molestation happens to them. As a result, you have a lot of adults exploding. Now, eventually, nobody wants to keep having adults exploding all the time. So now people are upset because the news of all the child abuse crimes is coming out. And now the public has to answer some questions they don't want to answer because it's too painful. So now you notice people are upset. So then what happens next is you may hear people suddenly complain about, for example, Moroccans. This is something that happens in the Netherlands, by the way. So that's why I use this example. So a lot of people are going to complain about Moroccans. And again, to highlight the participation of Moroccans in criminality in the Netherlands. However, the majority of the crime is committed by people of Moroccan ancestry, but they mainly highlight crime committed by Moroccans. Now, why do you think the people are doing this? Let me know in the live chat. Why do you think they're doing this? What's the benefit they get out of doing this? Let me know in the live chat. Why do you think they're doing it? I'll wait for another minute. Absolutely. That's what they're doing. They want to avoid reality. They want to create a scapegoat group for all their troubles and consequences that are coming. Think about it. You have a lot of child sexual abuse of children going on. It's going on for decades. That means there is neglect in the community. Now the neglect leads to adults escalating in public. Okay? But eventually, people will ask, why are so many adults exploding? And then you do research to the history of those adults exploding in public and find out that 90% of them were survivors of child sex abuse. And many of the people tell the cops nobody listened to them when they were telling what was going on. And then you find out, oh, this is quite a common thing. So when this comes out, the public is embarrassed. Foreigners are going to think, what type of country is this? So then there will be groups saying, you know what? You have Moroccans living amongst us. You have a Moroccan community here. They commit crime. So let's focus on the crimes they're doing. Let's highlight all the bad things Moroccans are doing over here. By doing that now, the focus becomes crimes committed by Moroccans. And because that, people lose sight of the fact that there's a child molestation problem going on in the community. Now, that problem is still going on, it's still not addressed. And the victims are still wounded going around. But the public now has a reason to feel good about themselves, because they would say, well, we're not like those Moroccans in crime. We're hardworking citizens over here, doing our best, paying our taxes. We're not like those Moroccan criminals who's taking advantage of other people. So now there's an us versus them. They classified Moroccans as the enemy of the east of society. Then it will go further and further. Then you have political parties that will speak out against not only Moroccans, but also against the religion that's dominant amongst them, Islam. And once the scapegoat is politicized, now it's only a matter of time before you will have physical weapons being acquired to act out against target group. Now, in some cases, this is done by the government, so by arming the police with heavier assault rifles, or it's done by religious groups or racist groups who want to take matters in their own hands. And slowly but slowly, it will lead to the public looking for a fight with a target group, and then it will be a mass escalation. So that is how it unfolds. Now, I'm not saying that the current situation in the Netherlands will lead to this. And by the way, don't mention things in the live chat that have nothing to do with the topic, please. Thank you very much. All right, because I don't tolerate that. It causes distraction, and I don't want that. Now, I'm not saying that the current situation in the Netherlands will lead to genocide against Moroccans. I'm not saying that. However, the pretext of a genocidal tension is there. The only thing is people don't want to admit it. Why? Because there are root issues that folks just don't want to admit. They're looking away. They're turning a blind eye, as it's called in the world. All right. It's all right, Ismir. Forgiven. Now we move on. Now, okay. As I mentioned before, what we can do against this issue of mass crime is just by calling it out from the start. It's that simple. Call it out from the start. When we notice that there's scandals people are avoiding, hint openly that there's scandals people are avoiding. When there's scandals going on in the community and the public's in denial, I'm not telling you to go out in the street and preach the scandals that they're avoiding. That will make you a target. I'm telling you to do that. What I do tell you is that we as believers need to call it out from the start. By calling out from the start, the public doesn't get the chance to look for scapegoats. So if it's a lot of unemployment that goes on in a community, then we need to address the corporate exploitation of the masses. We need to call it out for what it is. If we do that, then people will be upset with us, absolutely, but then it's called out. People know what's going on. And because people know what's going on, they now can take steps to keep themselves out of trouble. The reason why things like genocide or colonization or mass theft or mass rape happens is because things are not called out on from the start. Again, I'm not telling you to go out there and to dox people or to dox politicians, all of that. I'm not telling you to do that. I'm telling you just point out there are things amiss in this community. Just call it out. Be sensitive to people's feelings, absolutely, but still call it out. You don't have to verbally abuse people when you call out bad stuff in the community. No, you can do it in a loving, kind way, but still, you need to call it out. And that's the one thing that seldom happens. Often when things are called out, it's a bit late. I mean, for example, during the Second World War, or the period before the Second World War in the 1930s, when folks noticed that there was an anti-Jewish sentiment that was developing in Nazi Germany, if the people or believers back then would have called it out openly, then I'm not saying that everything would have been prevented, but it would have been hindered a lot. By the time people began to call it out, you already had militias out there looking for Ashkenazi Jews to arrest. You already had all type of discriminations in legislation against them. Look, when let's say if you are if people want to kidnap you, for example, just use an example now. When people want to kidnap you, the moment you should know that something is off is when they're approaching you. If you are already in a car with them, it's late. Because now you need to jump out of the car and run away. The moment to notice that people are of no good to you is when they're approaching you. If you begin to notice it later on, it's late, and sometimes it's too late. And by the way, anti-Semitism is a hoax. You know why? Because many of those people that they classify uh, as people belong to Israel are really from Khazarian ancestry. Khazaria was located in what today called Ukraine. So they're not even Semites. So anti-Semitism is a phrase used by the world when you want to question the narrative they're putting out there. How can criticizing a public that's not even Semites be anti-Semitic? It cannot happen. Okay, someone had a question. Let me see. Once someone asked, I have a question. When we we created an underclass of blacks because blacks who were financially able moved out of the community. Then the language black folks don't like black folks. What do you mean with that question? Please elaborate, please, because the question is a bit. It seems like there's a conclusion in the question. What exactly are you asking? Well, okay, wonderfully made will elaborate the question. So, but meanwhile, just know the following. When you call out things from the start, people will not be happy with you. And by the way, calling out doesn't simply mean just saying something without considering other people's feelings. Just hint at least that something's off. Now, once you do that, you do the second part. That is getting out of the situation. Yes, you heard me. Once you called something out, get out of the situation. Look, if you don't call it out, your silence is consent to what the masses are doing. Your silence will enable them to continue doing what they're doing, namely looking for victims. So when you call it out, leave the situation. You know why? If you call it out but you stay in the situation, there's a contradiction. I mean, if you call out that a certain supermarket is just a cover for money laundering, but you keep going to the same supermarket to purchase your groceries, people are going to think, huh? I thought you called this out that this supermarket is used by criminals to launder money. So why do you keep purchasing groceries over here? So you willingly help them out laundering money in the open? Okay. So that's what I mean. Get out of the situation. Okay. Wonderfully made. Rephrase the question. Chat. When we moved out, the poor blacks were left in our communities. Crime escalated, and they were called super predators. We other blacks failed to call it out until it was too late. Oh yes, indeed. And to use the example of the African American community in the 1970s, when racist policies disadvantaged uh, African Americans, the wealthy blacks moved to other neighborhoods and left others behind, and those left behind were taken advantage of in horrible ways. This was not called out. And what happened? Yet ghetto formation that came, and later crime increased, and later led to mass incarceration in the 1990s. And now in the streets, there is police genocide by police officers killing unarmed black men over and over again. So that was a big failure of the African Americans towards each other. I'm saying it as it is. Some African Americans, listen, this will be upset with me, but I need to call it out. Your grandparents failed you. Yes, they did. Your grandparents in 1970s were so focused on the quote unquote liberal rewards of integration. Yes, liberals promoted integration and claimed that once integration would happen, well, it's going to be a paradise, like Martin Luther King Jr. said, of, well, walking hand in hand and the dream will work out. Well, here's the thing, it takes work to make the dream work. In order for a dream to work, there must be a teamwork. And in the 1970s, there were reforms economically in the United States, but the economic reforms were not aimed at Black people, at African Americans. They were not. All other communities got compensation except the African American community, and it was not called out. Excuse after excuse was given. So if you're African American, listen to this. I'm not attacking you. I'm just pointing out your grandparents failed you. Or maybe you have grandparents who did call things out and they do whatever they could. In that case, I'm not talking about you. But in general, African Americans, your grandparents failed you by failing to address things directly. And by the way, the Black community worldwide, the reason we ended up in the current situation we are today is because in the late 1400s in West Africa, many of the people back then didn't call out the enslavement that was going on by the Portuguese. If in the late 1400s the African population in West Africa and the Congo, if they would have called out the Portuguese slave traders as well as their coonish kings that allowed it to happen, then the transatlantic slave trade and all the horrors would have never taken place. So, and here's another thing that goes on. The United States is lying to everyone, its own people, its own citizens. So also European Americans, which are called white Americans, but hey, they're for European ancestors, I call them for they are European Americans. European Americans also suffering economically. But here's the thing. I don't see many European Americans coming out and calling things out. They vote Republican and blame the liberals. Or they blame the immigrants. One just call out that your own European and your own leaders of European ancestry are failing you. Calling things out from the start is relevant. And that's why I said believers should call things out, because we have the resurrection power that we can use. Okay, this live stream is not about racial issues. Just be frank about that. It's not about sentiments around there and just analyze things over here. Every community needs to call things out from the start. I don't care which community, or you can be a Chinese community, an Indian community, a European community, or an African community. Every community needs to call things out from the start. And here's the thing. Once a situation has been going on for too long, you cannot expect easy resolutions. And that's another thing we need to understand. If something has been going on for a while now, don't expect to have easy resolutions. It's not going to happen. And one thing you need to understand also, some people are not going to comply with any resolution because they just want to escape. So I already told you, we as believers, we're not going to be able to prevent every crime or every mass evil from happening on the earth. No. But we as believers should be ahead of them so we can limit the impact of all the crimes that are about to take place on the earth. That's also going to be till Christ comes back. But there's one more thing that you also take into consideration. The public gets along with the tyranny because there is a payoff. The payoff is they get a pat on the back and they can get ease. That's the payoff. And sometimes politicians even generate these things. That's true. The only thing they have to do is to scare the public big time. Once the public is afraid, the public loses their minds, and then the public wants an escape. And then they suggest an escape to the public, and then the public will jump on the escape suggest to them, and everyone who disagrees with escape is now ostracized and later demonized. So that's why we as believers, we should have our own media. We should have our own communication with one another. And this you must understand about worldly people. This is what you need to understand about worldly people. Worldly people want to escape. I'm not sure about the current crisis, but I think we are in a discrimination stage, I think. Well, I hope we're not, but everything around me points out there's discrimination going on. Let's just hope it doesn't go to dehumanization. Because once it goes into dehumanization, we're going to face a lot of explosions openly. Now, again, I'm not coming with conspiracy theories over here. I'm just pointing out this is a sentiment I'm noticing. And wanting you to understand about genocide and mass crimes. Genocide and mass crimes don't originate with the government. They don't. And this is a mistake a lot of people make. They think, oh, in Nazi Germany, the Nazi government just want to kill all those Jews and all those other people, like the Roma people, all that, homosexuals, Freemasons. Look, it didn't start with the government. The government was used as a tool to get it done. This killing energy or this killing fairy tale emerged in the public. The public wanted to escape, and they eventually got an outlet, and they went for the outlet. All genocide and all mass murder, mass rape, and all mass crimes that happen in history and that will ever will happen in history, so future mass crimes will originate in the public. The common people have grudges and resentments they don't want to face. And collectively, they look for an outlet. That's the root of it. So we know what to do as believers. And that's why I'm warning you for another thing over here. This may sound controversial, but you need to hear it. Do not entangle yourself with churchgoers. Do not be entangled with churchgoers in these times. You shouldn't be entangled with them anyway, but don't be entangled with churchgoers. Because haven't you noticed that a lot of churches are silent? Believers, listen to me. Those churches out there, why are they so silent when they notice all this bad stuff happening around us? Believers walking by faith, they are the real church. The church is a movement of real believers in action. The church is not that building you visit every Sunday. Okay, let me give an illustration. If there, let's say you take, for example, a city like Wichita in the state of Kansas. And in Wichita, you have some churches, okay? Yet, Wichita is the center of human trafficking and sex trafficking in the United States. You need to ask yourself, how come you have those churches over here, yet the same city we have all these churches, they are the center of human and sex trafficking? Come on. That means that they're in on it, either by denying it, so they allow it to happen, or they benefit from it themselves. What I'm saying is that churchgoers, I don't talk about real believers that are still stuck in church, in those churches. I don't talk about them. If you are a real believer who are still stuck in church, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about those unbelievers who are associated with church and call themselves by the name of Christ. I'm talking about churchgoers now. No, no, I'm not talking about real believers. Churchgoers have this narcissistic attitude that's all about them going to heaven. So, if someone is mainly focused on going to heaven, first of all, that's not biblical. We will never go to heaven. We'll be resurrected in immortal bodies, physical immortal bodies. We'll be in the sky for a little moment. Then we'll return back to the soul of the earth when the earth is renewed as an eternal paradise for us. Human beings are not designed for heaven, nor will we ever dwell there. This going to heaven myth generated by the Catholic Church is an escapism for the masses. So when people are hooked on this escapism, you will notice that they become neglectful in the here and now. Just think about it. Devil worshippers are creating their heaven right now. The heaven for devil worshippers is that the masses are defenseless, easy victims. So devil worshippers are using our vulnerabilities against us so they can have easy prey at our expense. That's what they're doing. You mean to tell me that the child molesters, you mean to tell me that those that worship Satan, you mean to tell me that the warmongers will start wars, you mean to tell me that the pimps, you mean to tell me that all those dangerous people are active right now to get their ease at other people's expense? And you, as a believer, you're told by church, well, our heaven will come after you die. So during this lifetime, you just have to find a way to let things happen to you. Sorry, but that's ridiculous. If anyone tells you that you have to allow yourself to be run over, abused, raped, and smacked around for other people's relief, and you may get some relief after you die, those are the people you should avoid. And a lot of churchgoers I've noticed, they don't even want to address what goes on in the community. Or they would say, just pray about it or go to church. They refuse to be active in resolving the conflicts in the community. I mean, let's say you have two groups. One group is a pagan group that believes in, I don't know, nature spirits or whatever. And then you have one group of churchgoers. The group of churchgoers, only thing they do is they go to the 9 to 5 job, 40 hours a week, and then they go to church on Sunday, paying tithes and offerings and singing praises. That's all they do all year long. And then you have the group of pagans who worship nature spirits. They're building organizations, charities. They're opening orphanages. They're offering education to people that need it. They even offer education to people who just came out of prison so they can reform back and go back to society. Now, which of the two groups is more likely to get results in life? The pagan group or the belief or the churchgoers? Let me know in the live chat. Yes, the pagan group will have results immediately. Why? Because the pagan group is acting out right now and they are facing the issue head on. Now, the pagan group cannot actually solve anything because they are in pattern cycles themselves, just like the world. But at least they understand for things to change or things to happen, you need to act now. But the churchgoers who go to church every Sunday, hearing the same teaching and the same Bible verses every week, year after year, they don't get anything done. The only thing they get is more people come to church, and they may even open up a new church location. That's what they do. They add numbers to the church attendance. That's the only thing they do, but they do not actually deal with anything in the community. I mean, if you claim to be a believer, that means you should have the resurrection power of Christ in you. Why aren't you using the resurrection power of Christ to uproot the violence in your community? Why aren't you doing it? There must be at least a firm reduction in violence and trauma in that community if there's a church nearby. If the trauma is relocated towards the church, or if the trauma increases in the community, then you know that those people are in on it. Simple as that. And that is the reality many worldlings see about church, about those churches. Those churches, 9 out of 10 times, aren't doing anything in the here and now. Just talk about, oh, the rapture, we're going to be taken away before things get rough. I'm sorry, but if the rapture really existed, which it doesn't, why are we still on the earth then? And Christ didn't secretly take us away. Or they say, oh, just shut up, endure it, we'll go to heaven anyway. No, I'm not in Korea. So they make excuses just to escape. Those churches are escape centers where people go to escape, waiting for a trip to heaven that will never happen. And when Jesus comes back, they'll say, but Lord, we went to church every Sunday, we sang praises, we did this and that in your name. And Jesus is going to tell those reprobates, sorry, I never knew you, I never had fellowship with you. Yes, you went to church every Sunday, but you never were interested in actually doing my will. You never really actually believed the gospel. You're relying on a pat on the back at church, and you neglect your community as long as you lived. So we have nothing in common over here. Simple as that. I mean, just think about it, saints. Just think about it. If you go to a building every weekend, hearing the same thing over and over again, at some point you're going to think, enough. When is something new coming? When is a new chapter opening? When can we move on and do more? But those churchgoers, they're stuck in going to that building every Sunday, getting their ease to boost them to go throughout the week. And then they will say, and when things come out that they've been lied to, they will blame the pastor. Okay, the pastor can be a warlock that was deceiving you. Absolutely, that happens often. But how come you didn't notice something was off? How didn't you notice that? Hold on a minute. I've been going to this church for over 2 months now. If the power of God is there, there should have been massive change in my life by now. The thing is, and this is an unpopular thing I'm about to say, but many of those people in church, I'm not saying all, so don't say I said all of churchgoers, but many churchgoers are bordering narcissism themselves. It's all about them having assurance they're going to heaven, while those stupid people out there are going to hell. And they are superior because they go to heaven, because they go to church faithfully. That's what's on their mind. If you have eternal security provided by Christ, why not operate in that confidence in daily life? Why do you need to go to a building every Sunday to get assured you're going to heaven? If you need to be assured every week that you're going to heaven, it means that you're not going. And what I believe is happening right now, and if I'm proven wrong, I'm proven wrong. What I can see happening now is that the Heavenly Father is distracting the world with their own crisis so that the world doesn't have the strength to escalate against Judean believers taking over. The restoration of Judah is happening right now, which will benefit all believers on the earth, and the Heavenly Father doesn't want the world to have the strength left to keep escalating on the tribe of Judah, which has been happening for centuries already. That's what's going on right now. That's why they're handed over to their own reprobate expectations. That's what's going on at the moment. Wonderfully made. I hope this answered your question. So, do you understand now why I'm telling you not to be entangled with churchgoers? I'm not telling you to ostracize churchgoers. No. I'm not telling you to dislike or hate them. We don't do aversion over here. We walk in love towards our neighbor as God commanded us to do. But we have to realize we cannot walk in love with everyone. Just because someone calls on the name, just because someone mentions the name of Christ and they read Bible verses, that does not mean that they are truly believers and that they're willing to do the will of the Heavenly Father. There are even believers that we should keep at a distance because they persist in error. If believers should be avoided if they persist in error for the safety of the body of Christ, then how much more associates who only go to church? Look, what's going on now? What's going on now is that the Heavenly Father is showing all believers, both Judean and Gentile believers, God's showing all of us what we're dealing with. The time of going to church to get to leave is over. The time to brush things off is over. We need to face what's going on and take spiritual and, where possible, physical actions as God intended for us to do. That's the will of the Heavenly Father. There was this Dutch man, I'm not going to mention names, not necessary. There was this Dutch man who developed cancer. Yes, he did. Now, he was engaged, I believe, engaged with this Dutch woman. Okay. When news came out from the hospital he had cancer, the fiance left him. She said, "Oh, one of my relatives already died of cancer several years ago. I can't go to this again." She just left him. He went to church because he was a churchgoer, and he was looking for consultation at church. And you know what? People just told him, "Yo, man, don't worry, man. You're going to heaven. Rejoice." They told him that. And the man ended up dying a few months later of cancer in a hospital. He's dead now. He's gone. The fiance left him. She's hopping on some other man at the moment, as if her ex never existed. And church just said, "Man, you're going to heaven." Uh, I'm sorry. Where's the resurrection power of Christ? Where's the power? You guys are Christ followers, right? Where's the power? Nobody even talked about the power. Nobody even said, let's decree and declare. Let's deal with this thing from the root. Nobody told them, dude, forget about that woman that left you. F her. We got you. We're the body of Christ. We got this. Where was the motivation? No, they said, man, you're going to heaven, just rejoice. And that church is still on good terms with that woman who escaped and abandoned the guy. Man. So they buried this churchgoer even before he was dead. And I dare to say it's the betrayal and neglect of the church environment that increased his disease and caused him to die quicker. So a lot of churchgoers, they will bury you before you're even dead. Why? Just because they can escape what's going on. Oh, you're going to die. Oh, it's horrible you're dying of disease, but hey, you're close to heaven, man. That's what they say. We're not going to heaven. How often do I need to say this? We're not going to heaven. We'll be on the earth forever in immortal physical bodies. And we'll have all languages on the earth, like we used to do during our lifetimes. But we'll be able to understand each other telepathically. Some ability God does allow us to have now. Mm-hmm. So if you're still entangled with churchgoers, I'm not telling you to just block them or unfriend them out of the blue and all of that. Just peacefully keep them at a distance. Because those churchgoers, they will be used by the enemy to either hinder you or to set you up. The earth is our home. The prayer goes, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Earth is supposed to reflect the joy of the Heavenly Father in everyone. That's the purpose of Earth's existence, to reflect the joy of the Heavenly Father in the human species. Yes, we get resurrected in immortal physical bodies. That's what we will be resurrected in. We'll be on the earth forever. This whole thing that we will be without bodies in a heavenly realm, playing on harps, is not biblical. The unsaved will also be resurrected in physical immortal bodies, but they will not be glorified bodies. Because the reprobate will be in a negative state. So their immortal bodies will reflect this negative state. And that's why it's important for real believers to have fellowship with one another. Because one thing you need to notice about this world, nothing is established without fellowship. Freshington 21, I'm not going into all those questions because when the earth is renewed and Christ comes back, we'll be immortal forever. So why do you want to find out the details of life will be then if Christ hasn't come back yet? Why are you worried about how the logistics are going to play out? Isn't God the one resurrecting us? Okay. Freshington 21, you need some deliverance. For real. We should be focused on the here and now, not and when Christ has come back. We should focus on the here and now because we are in the here and now. Christ wants us to be active in the here and now. Yes, we'll pray for you. Everyone here, pray for Fresh Stone 21. Please, thank you very much. All right. Listen, saints, we have to be realistic right now. We cannot afford to have church mentality, that we can't afford to have unexamined expectations. We can't afford any of those things. And what I mentioned before is we need to learn to have fellowship on a regular basis. In the world, sex traffickers come together and they fellowship in strip houses or in other places, sometimes even fellowship in churches on what to do with the sex trafficking they have. When politicians want to get something done, they fellowship one another just to find a way how to get things done. When genocidal mobs want to go out and massacre people, they fellowship together and they train together on shooting ranges. Everything on the earth here is established through fellowship. Nobody can establish anything all by themselves. That's not humanly possible. So if those on the dark side understand that it's through fellowship that they establish things as a group, how come the believers thinking they can operate as loners? No. We need to learn to fast and pray on a regular basis, and we need to fellowship on a regular basis. That's why we can't be entangled with churchgoers who only want an escape every Sunday. That's why we can't be unequally yoked with unbelievers who are only into escaping. We need to have regular practical fellowship in which we are humble and able to process what goes on in the world and walk properly. The thing is, society traumatizes all of us. Society pollutes all of us. That's why, on a regular basis, we need to wash each other's feet. What Christ did with the disciples, washing their feet, is a symbol of what we should be doing. Because during this lifetime, you will be polluted from time to time by the distractions in the world, or you will be polluted by violence done against you. So that's why fellowship is important, because during fellowship in unity with Holy Spirit, we get cleansed from day to day. Now, you are already clean because you're delivered. Once you are delivered, you're clean. But your daily life may be hindered here and there. That's why fellowship is important. Okay. I see a question over here. It says, Rashid, I know you said that we should call things out before they escalate. How can we do this against the... Okay. Just ask proper questions. That's the only thing you do. One way to call things out is by asking practical questions. And once people can't answer practical questions, you leave it at that. That's one way to call something out. Ask practical questions. If someone offers you a quick fix, ask them about the long-term consequences and how are they going to deal with long-term liabilities. If you're not able to answer that, then that's enough. You don't have to do anything more. Because if you fight the quick fix, they will explode on you. They want you to fight the quick fix so they have an excuse in escalating against you. So ask constructive questions. And once you can't answer them, that's it. You've dismantled them. So do that. Don't go out and say, this is a quick fix, it's not going to work, blah, blah. No, no, no. People want you to do that so they can have an excuse to escalate. ask them proper constructive questions about the topic. Once you ask those questions and they can't answer them, or they bullshit around it, then you already can just walk away peacefully because you've done your part. This is the same thing Christ did when he walked the earth. One time, Peter came home and Christ asked him, Peter, from whom do the kings of the earth demand taxes? From their own children or from strangers? Peter answered, from strangers. Then Christ said, that means the children are exempt. But because we don't want to cause offense, go to the lake, you will find a fish, catch it, you'll find a golden coin in it, go and pay for me and you. So Christ asked a constructive question to Peter, and this question revealed the unfair situation of the taxation system back then. But Christ also realized that it's not wise to act out against the Roman taxation system right now. So he called it out and revealed to them this is wrong. But you know what? We're going to give them what they want, just pay those coins, then they have no choice, no risk come against us. Now look, once you call something out, or when something has been called out already, don't overdo it. Okay? If a situation is wrong and it's been called out before, and you notice the people just don't want to discuss it, then don't continue to call it out. If it has been called out before and over again, then don't overdo it. Don't call it out if it's been done before. What you do is you just remain quiet about it then. Meanwhile, begin to prepare your way to escape the situation. If you need to work a few extra hours to save some money so that you can move away, you do that. If you need to go and live in a community of believers, you do that. And that is why we as believers, we should be economically powerful on the earth. That's why this hoax of going to heaven is so dangerous. Because if people tell you that your only expectation for good is when after you die, that means you'll be neglectful during this lifetime. We as believers, we should be economically dominant so that we won't have to put up with the restrictions of society. Genocide, as well as other mass crimes, are common in human history. It's just that often it's diverted through the scapegoat mechanism. That's why. You don't give them rope to hang themselves. They're providing the rope themselves. They just want you to cheer them on and hang themselves. Well, don't cheer them on. You just walk away. Let them hang themselves if they hang themselves if they want. I don't talk about actual suicidal people. If someone is suicidal, you intervene. But when the masses insist on going the wrong way, no, football is the wrong way, then don't fight them, but don't cheer them on also. Just shake them off your feet and move on. If believers were economically dominant, we wouldn't even have all these controversies right now. We wouldn't. But fear not. There is hope, and we have a good confident expectation of good. That's why we need to operate in it. Look, if an individual is suicidal, you intervene by calling the authorities or whatever. But if a group of people insist in destroying themselves, I'm sorry, but those are swine, a herd of swine wanting to devour. If they're willing to put themselves at risk, then they're also going to put you at risk. Just shake us off your feet and move on. Beware with the book of Esther, please. I'm not going to discuss the book of Esther right now, but the book of Esther is quite disturbing. It's praised by many churches, but no. The book of Esther, beware with it. Fred, I can't recall that is the situation right now. But okay, I've been in a ministry in this ministry for over 8 years, so I don't remember everyone that came by and left. But anyway, thanks for the compliments. You can do a good job for the kingdom of God too, Fred. Just walk by faith. Fred, you can do great works too. Walk by faith. Just do that. I don't care what goes on there in Australia. Just walk by faith. If the rest of Australia wants to destroy themselves, hey, let them destroy themselves. It's not on you. Just keep walking by faith. Wonderfully Main said the mega churches have some economic strength, but they go along to get along. Well, let me correct you a little bit. You're not wrong, but let me give you a better understanding of the situation. It's the warlocks that have the economic strength. Those mega churches are just fronts for the warlocks to drain the masses in the name of Christ. So that's why they don't speak up, because they're in on it, all of them. Look, as believers, we have empathy and sympathy. We're not narcissistic assholes who only care about ourselves. We are concerned with other people. We're not worried because worries won't help. We are concerned. We have healthy concern for our fellow human beings. However, we need to admit that there are reprobate human beings out there who will self-destruct no matter what. So just don't waste any effort on them, because they will drain you into their destruction. Learn when to shake dust off your feet and move on. Sometimes it's not easy to know where someone's a reprobate or not. In that case, Christ himself will evict them from your life. And some of you believers are going to experience some evictions from your life. When God evicts someone from your life, don't try to get them back. When God evicts someone from your life, you can't get them back because God evicted them. And when God evicts them, there's no way anyone can undo that. Let God evict people from your life because God sees they're no good to you. Yes, God will evict people from your life. Don't be sad about it. Sometimes you'll be sad because people close to you. Well, cry about it, grieve and mourn about it. That's how you process it. Just realize that God did the right thing. God did what was best. And when God evicts them, God does it in such a way that they will leave by themselves. God will trick them into leaving by themselves, and they will slam the door behind you. When that happens, just rejoice. Have a party. God just evicted another saboteur from you. Shanna, just pray for your children and your offspring, decree and declare for them. Your husband or spouse that you have, if you have any, should do the same thing, and don't be worried, just be concerned. There's a difference between being concerned and being worried. Worried is when you're stressed out, freaking out about the situation. Concern is when you are realizing, oh, something needs to be done about this. Never be worried, but be concerned. Concern is healthy. Worry is destructive. If you have off-topic questions, I recommend you to email me about your questions so I can go through them with time. Or you can you can just leave a comment on one of my community posts also, that I can see the comment and I can respond to it. That will be much better. Oh, man. Someone said here, Christ evicted a few people. I'm glad because I couldn't really do it on my own. I was trying to play Jesus Jr. and save them, but he does saving, not me. I'm God glad he fixed them. Jesus Jr. is the first time I heard this. But hey, it may sound funny, but unfortunately, sometimes we try to play Jesus Jr. and we're not Jesus Juniors. We're not. There's no such thing as a Jesus Jr. God does the saving himself. So genocide is nothing modern, as been going on since ancient times. Even in the Bible, there are examples of genocide. It happened to the ancient Israelites in Egypt. Later, it was done by King Saul towards some of the Canaanite tribes over there. It's a common thing. Okay. If there are no any other questions, it's me ask, do a Q&A one time with your, okay. Okay, just ask them through the email or through the community post. It's much better. Yeah, family members will be connected to you during this lifetime, absolutely. But you don't have to be involved with them if they are toxic. Okay, thank you all for being here. The live stream has been a bit long, almost 1 hour and 40 minutes. Keep agreeing with Christ, please. Renew your mind. Be humble to receive assistance when necessary. And I'll see you next time. Thank you for being here.